we have the idea from Chazal, from the sages, that there are 613 mitzvot, and that's really 365 mitzvot plus 248 mitzvot, where there are 365 days in the year, and as Chazal relay, 248 parts of the body, and clearly the body has different numbers of parts depending on how you count them, and really, I think Chazal may have chosen the number 248 to make that point, because 2 times 2 is 4 and 2 times 4 is 8. So you can have this exponential multiplication of number of parts of the body depending on how finely you slice things. But the point is that a body is a whole. And since we're enumerating mitzvot in that case, it's about how this all goes together. So you can maybe take a hair off of someone's head and they're still a person, or you can even someone could unfortunately lose an arm or something and they're still a whole living functioning person. But at a certain point, when you separate enough of the pieces of a body, there is no function or purpose to a retina or a toenail or something in isolation from the rest of what it's a part of. And the reason that's an important point to make with mitzvot is that if you take part of the Torah and you just say, okay, well, it says here when talking about how to conduct war, this is how you should conduct war. So someone who wants to can just rip that page out of Tanakh, so to speak, and be like, all right, I've got my instructions for how to fight a war. I'm not really interested in all this other stuff about, I don't know, idol worship or adultery or not wearing wool and linen in the same fabric, etc. But I'll use this part. There isn't something obviously or inherently ethical or correct about doing that. And you see this first in Parshat Mishpatim, where you get some of the first laws of war that are laid down, or at least psukim, like verses about conquest of the land and the enjoinder upon Am Yisrael to go to Eretz Yisrael and conquer it. But that comes after the first deluge of very specific rules of all different kinds, having to do with holidays and having to do with ritual expectations and having to do with what you would call more sort of ethical constraints, laws having to do with setting slaves free, or laws having to do with marriage, etc. And the point, I think, is that you don't get to start talking about conquering the land of Israel until you've signed up for the rest of the package deal. Because if you haven't done that, then it's not clear that you really deserve to succeed or that you really merit Hashem's permission to prosecute your conquest in a certain way. Like if you're going to try to conquer the land so that afterwards what you plan to do there is whatever you feel like, maybe you'll build a bunch of movie theaters or ice hockey rinks or whatever, and just do that all the time and not bother with anything else because that's what you like. It's not clear in that case that whatever we would say is appropriate in a war of conquest, according to the Torah, is still appropriate even if you had only that objective. And so, yeah, I think it's not just about the difference between Am Yisrael and other nations or Eretz Yisrael and other places. It may both be the case that the way the Torah teaches Am Yisrael to fight wars is not just an isolatable manual for the rest of humanity about the proper conduct of war. It also is the case that if Am Yisrael are not committed to the Torah, that it becomes more questionable, whether the remaining parts of the body are really still a living, breathing whole that sort of merits HaKadosh Baruch Hu's support, and that's true of many mitzvot, and that troublingly, it may also be true that if we refuse to keep the mitzvot of the Mikdash, even once we're back in our land and we have the opportunity to return to Yerushalayim and to Har HaBayit and to restart that whole process, and we refuse to do that, you may also wonder whether HaKadosh Baruch Hu still thinks that we merit to have the status of his people trying to keep his Torah, or whether we've kind of sliced off the piece of the Torah that we like, and that we're insisting on a sort of a complex idolatry that's based on that, and hoping that he'll let us get away with it. So yeah, I definitely think it's the case that you have to view this in some sense that there's a package deal aspect to it. And if you really are trying to take hold of the whole package deal, then yes, I absolutely agree that the Torah may enjoin upon Am Yisrael to teach the other nations of the world different rules for how they should conduct themselves in war than are given to Am Yisrael to conduct themselves in war if they are laying claim to their inheritance as Hashem's people.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.